I'm standing here with Jason Jessup of Magna Mining. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because you're one of the very few companies here that have seen their stock go up as much as you did. You're up, what, 160%, I think, year to date, something like that. You just did a big financing. And I want to talk about all these things, and I want to talk about how you take it to the next level from here on out because your market cap is high as is. Maybe, though, not representing the full value of the company. So lots to touch upon there, but just first of all, what are you even doing here? I mean, again, your stock price is going up. You have a lot of money. What are you hoping to get out of this conference?
Yeah, we have, I think we have a lot to talk about. And really what I want to get out is just get the word out on Magna to a broader audience. In the past, I think we focused a lot of our marketing in North America. And I think, especially in Canada, we're starting to gain a lot of traction and people know who Magna is. But in Europe, we haven't done enough marketing. That's my opinion. And so we're over here meeting some new investors who haven't heard the Magna story. And I think with a larger market cap, with a clear pathway to being a producer once we close the KGHM acquisition, it's really, I guess, turned attention to us from different investors that may not have been as interested before. So yeah, hoping to meet a lot of new investors and just tell our story.
And so the idea for you is to build the share registry with a little bit more European investors. Are you specifically targeting professional investors or institutions, or who are you talking to?
Yeah, I think both. We're definitely think it's important to have a retail investor community supporting our stock. They're the ones that are typically buying and trading in the market on a regular basis and giving us a lot of liquidity. But we've also, met with some funds that are happy to buy in the market. And as you mentioned, we just closed the financing. We're not looking to raise money. So by talking to institutional investors who have the ability to buy in the market, it allows liquidity and it has, I think, had a positive reaction in our stock.
I do want to go back to talking about that stock price move, more specifically why it's happened. Not, I understand the underlying work that you're doing. You've been very professional about this, which unfortunately is a rarity in our space, and it shouldn't be. But what do you think the other guys are missing that, I'm talking to here or talking elsewhere, where the underlying metal has gone up 50, 60%, their stock maybe 10, 15%. What are they missing? What are you doing that's better? And it's kind of the other way around for you.
Yeah, and that's a tough question to answer, and I don't know specifically what any company's not doing, but I can speak from experience that Magna was in that boat at one time, and when nickel prices were skyrocketing in 2022, we were seeing valuations with just our Shakespeare project at that time, of a $20 million market cap, a much smaller company than where we sit today, and we didn't have that torque. I think we've got to a certain size right now with our Crane Hill acquisition and how far we've advanced that project, and now with the announcement of this KGHM acquisition bringing another 8 properties, the resources that come with that and what we currently have in the ground in situ upon closing this acquisition, I think it's given us that critical mass that people really pay attention now. As well, we have continually executed on what we said we were going to do. So I think we've developed trust in the investor community, and I think we still are going to continue to build that trust with new investors, but that means a lot. And when I talk to investors who said, I talked to you 3 years ago, you said you were going to do this, and you've done it now, and you've done it without creating a lot of dilution for the company, without having to impact negatively the shareholders or take on debt. So I think we've done things in a pragmatic way, and really this has been the goal and the strategy of the company since inception 8 years ago. So yeah, I think those are some of the reasons why we've perhaps performed better than others in our space over the last year.
What do you then say to the typical contrarian here, if you will, who looks at this and he's like, oh, this is already up 150% this year, is now a good time to step in?
Yeah, and it is. We've gone up a lot, and so I get that question all the time. But when people really understand the assets that we're acquiring, and these are not just assets we're acquiring that we can talk about without having any experience. These are assets in Sudbury that myself and many of our team, including our COO and our Senior Vice President of Exploration, have actually worked on while we were with FNX. So we made big discoveries on these properties in Sudbury. We have operated them successfully. We understand these assets inside and out. I personally ran the McCready West mine for 3 years and ran the operations at the Levack mine for another 2.5 years. I know these assets really, really well. And when I start explaining the success that we had in the past with these and how much metal could be produced when these assets are in the hands of a company where they're material and they get focus that they deserve, they get the capital that they deserve. FNX was a great success story, and the people who've invested in FNX understand it very well. So for people who aren't familiar with FNX, and when I joined FNX, it had gone from about 75 cents up to a little over $4. They made the discovery in 2005, right around the time I joined, of the Levack footwall, which we later called the Morrison deposit. And in 2010, I brought into commercial production. We went $7. So people who are saying it's already up from 75 cents at $4, I've met people that said I sold at that price. And then they made a discovery and it went to $7. And then the nickel and copper market turned up in 2006 and 7, and the share price went up to $39. So there is still a tremendous amount of upside in exploration, in growth potential. I personally believe that we can use McCready West as a producing, cash flowing company over the next 1 to 2 years to bootstrap a lot of the capital needed to bring Levack back into production, to build our Crane Hill mine, and I think looking out towards 2027, potentially bringing the Podolsky mine back into production. So by the end of 2027, there's potential, and this is a forward-looking statement, but there's potential without any significant amount of capital being raised from the markets that we could have 4 mines producing and generating revenues in Sudbury. So when people hear that, it's not hard to imagine higher share prices. And I've said this personally many times. I fully believe that we can become a multi-billion-dollar company, much like FNX was, but I think even better with just these assets in Sudbury. So that's the upside. What that looks like in a share price, I'll let the analysts figure that out. But a lot of people are excited, and I think it's been reflected over the last few weeks in our share price.
Let's talk about the money that you just raised and how you're going to use that to that goal to become that multi-billion-dollar company here. What are the immediate next steps for you?
Yeah, so the immediate next step is working with the team at McCready West. Now, we haven't closed the deal yet, but we are in discussions with the team there to put together the budget for next year and understanding how much capital is going to be needed to be invested and what a production profile is going to look like. So that's our immediate, goal, and that's not going to take a lot of capital, but it's going to provide, ideas where we're going to have those uses of proceeds. So we'll get that figured out, and then I can give a lot more clarity on how much will go to exploration, how much may go to capital investment in our projects. But we're going through that exercise right now.
And that's potentially when you're going to be able to tell me how far that money is going to get you, because you're talking about bootstrapping. Would that mean never having to raise capital again, or do you think you're going to have to do another capital raise sometime next year?
Yeah, and again, that's going to depend on how much exploration we want to do. There's a number of really exciting exploration targets out there, and so we just have to determine how many drills we want to have turning. What does that budget look like? This year, we're probably in 2024. We're going to spend between $6 and $7 million on exploration. I would guess next year we're going to want to be somewhere between 5 and 7 again, but we'll see. Maybe it's higher than that. So with that, we may want to do a raise for some flow through sometime next year, perhaps. But again, we need to do the budget and understand that.
Well, and is your G&A going to go up? Because I thought maybe if you're raising more, you're raising more money now, you become more active, means higher G&A. Is that the case?
Well, we are going to have higher G&A when we take on, the acquisition and the extra people. There's going to be some G&A costs associated with that. We are still building out our team, so there are some key positions sort of in the finance department and procurement department, health and safety, that we will be bringing in some professionals into the team for that. So yeah, that will add something to our G&A, but we still have our head office in Sudbury, which has relatively low rent compared to Sudbury or Vancouver, and we do really watch our G&A. Every dollar is really important to us. We still operate like we're owners, and we are, and I'm a big shareholder. I've started the company in 2016, and for 4 years didn't take a salary, and I have a lot of my personal wealth in the company, so we really watch those costs.
So money is not keeping you up at night. Strategy is not keeping you up at night. Share price is not keeping you up at night. What is? What's the main challenge for you? What are you mostly thinking of right now?
I am in a fortunate position where I'm really thinking about long-term strategy. How do we position ourselves to someday, maybe it's 5 years, 10 years from now, but really be enacting on a strategy that'll take us from being a junior producer into a very successful mid-tier, and then even how do we take it 10 years from now to make that leap to actually be a major producer. And this is the strategy I'm really thinking about, and that's what keeps me up at night thinking, what is the best approach to that. I think we have a great pipeline of projects for the next, call it 8 to 10 years in Sudbury. If we continue to execute like we're planning on executing, and we have those significant cash flows in the future, again, forward-looking statement, it's how do we use that to continue to grow the company, and maybe that means outside of Sudbury. So I have the fortunate position that a lot of juniors don't have, that I can look far out on our strategy, and I'm not worrying about day-to-day and week-to-week sort of issues and challenges.
We might be opening a door that leads to a very much longer conversation here, but outside of Sudbury, what do you mean by that? What are you envisioning?
Well, again, and this is just looking at, are there other jurisdictions that would fit well with the skill set and the culture that we're building at Magna that we could apply to perhaps older camps that have, again, maybe major companies that are looking to get out because they're changing their direction and strategy, and there may be an opportunity for Magna to get into. Also looking at certain other jurisdictions that have large-scale tier 1 type exploration potential. And how do we, once we have additional cash flows and we're able to organically do exploration from cash flows, how do we start growing out that we can potentially make a tier 1 new discovery in another jurisdiction in the future? And again, I'm talking out years from now, but these are the kind of things I'm thinking about, and how we position ourselves, because I think we have a very solid pipeline of growth ahead of us with assets we're extremely familiar with and a team that has run them before. And I have a great COO, I have a great Senior Vice President of Exploration. They can manage those departments of our company in Sudbury very efficiently, and allows me to be a CEO and talk to new investors, attract new capital, and also strategize for the future.
When you strategize for the future, you keep seeing Magna as the company doing that. Like, you're not for sale. You want to bring these assets into production. You want to keep expanding the company, and you're not necessarily looking for JV. Am I getting that correctly?
Yeah, we're definitely not looking to do JVs. There's no foreseeable future of us needing enough capital that we need to bring in a bigger partner to provide the capital and share the projects with them in a JV fashion. Now, I'm not saying we wouldn't have a strategic come in to take a 9.9 or maybe even a larger position within Magna itself, but yeah, we're not looking for JVs. Right now we have Dundee Corp as our largest shareholder with around 20% of the company, and they've been extremely supportive and participated in this last financing, and but like I say, in the future we may look for another corporate strategic, but at this time we have cash in the bank and we don't need it.
What's John telling you, by the way? What does he want you to do? And I'm talking John Goodman for people listening out of Dundee Corporation, but what is he telling you? Where does he see the company going?
John's a great supporter, a great cheerleader of the company. I think we've built a great relationship with himself and his management team where they trust what we're doing. So Jonathan's on the board, and he's definitely vocal in board meetings and has opinion, but I think he just trusts us to keep executing on the strategy we have. He wants to see McCreedy optimized. He wants to see it at sort of what we believe is the full production potential of it, and that's what we're going to do. And he's very supportive of it.
I know you got to run here. I know you're actually running around talking to actually smart people. Unlike in this case, what are they asking you? What am I forgetting to ask you that you think is important, and that again your institutional shareholders are asking you here?
Well, the most common question I've gotten today from new people is, how come you didn't come talk to me before you did this financing? I would have loved to participate in it. So that's what I'm hearing a lot of. But, I honestly say I haven't got any really tough questions. Again, we are very prudent. We are owners in the company. We really act in that manner. And, I just invite other, intelligent investors to do their homework, speak to us and make up their own mind. But, I think there's lots of upside alongside where we are right now.
And that's Jason Jessup of Magna Mining. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you very much.